Hello again, everybody. This is attorney Mark Brunner. Thank you so much for joining me again today on Talking Texas Law. Today's topic, we're going to talk about early termination of a straight or regular probation. In a subsequent video, we're going to talk about early termination of a deferred adjudication probation. But for today, we're going to talk about trying to get off a regular or a straight probation early. So let's say you find yourself on probation for a term of number of months or number of years. To get off of a straight or regular probation early, you're going to have served at least 1/3 of your sentence or 2 years of your sentence, whichever is less. That kind of gets you in the ballpark to start applying for possibly trying to terminate that probation early and getting off. Well, how else might you qualify? What are some of the other factors to consider? Well, you've got to have any kind of money that you owe as part of your probation. That balance needs to be down to zero. Here I'm talking about things such as restitution, court costs, fines, things like that. Now, we're not talking about the monthly $60 a month or whatever you might pay to put yourself through the probation process each month. That balance is really only for the months you were actually on probation. So we're talking about the other fines and court costs that you were imposed at the beginning. That needs to be down to zero before you can even think about trying to get off early. Second, any kind of classes, treatment programs, evaluations, community service hours, all those need to be zeroed out. You have none left before you can think about trying to apply to get off probation early. Again, the other main factor is, have you kept up in general with all the conditions of your probation? Have you had no recent violations or hopefully no violations of any kind the entire time you've been on probation? Have you had no new criminal law offenses? You haven't given your probation officer any sort of hassles recently? And also another factor is just whatever that particular judge factors in his and her mind about what they consider important as part of your overall rehabilitation. What do they want to see that you've achieved before you can ask to get off early? And really that's going to depend on the judge. There's no hard and fast rule. Some of the other factors to consider are, what was the seriousness of the original offense? Was it a crime with a victim? Was it a victimless crime? Some sort of property crime, etc.? That may depend on how long a judge may want to see you on probation, up to and including the maximum duration. Also, ask yourself honestly, what was your criminal history prior to the time you got placed on probation? What would be the opinion of the prosecutor's office? What would be the opinion, more importantly, of the probation department? How has y'all's relationship been over the past several years or months? How have you been doing on probation? Have you been complying with the conditions? Have you been giving them a lot of trouble or not? So again, ask yourself honestly, how have you been doing? And also the judge is going to factor in, what is the best interest of society, the overall sense of justice, and have you been fully rehabilitated? Again, this is highly variable. The judge may have very, very different factors from one to the other about what they consider the proper amount of time that you have been on probation before they will consider letting you off early. Also, please note that there are several offenses that aren't eligible to have a straight probation terminated early. These might be things such as aggravated offenses involving a deadly weapon, sexual offenses, or offenses involving intoxication behind the wheel, such as DWI, felony, or even just misdemeanor. Those offenses are not eligible. But again, it's always, if you do have a qualifying probation, if you've been doing a good job, you've knocked out your community service hours, you've knocked out your fines and court costs, you might as well get in there and see if you can try to get off probation early. There doesn't hurt to ask. The judge can always say no, and guess what? You can try again later. You get more than one shot. With that in mind, let me give you the typical disclaimer, which is this video is being offered for educational and informational purposes only. This is not to be construed as giving legal advice, and this is not a legal consultation. And unless you're already a contracted client of mine, I'm not your lawyer. Once again, this has been attorney Mark Brunner, and thank you so much for joining me today on Talking Texas Law. I'll see y'all next time.